Water. It's absolutely essential for life, right? But when it gets into places it really shouldn't be in your home, well, it becomes one of the most destructive forces you can possibly face. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on water damage. It's a hidden threat that's way more common and honestly way more complex than most people think. Let's jump right in.
You know, the biggest problem with water damage is that it rarely ever announces itself. There's no big fanfare. It usually starts small, with these little, subtle clues that are just so easy to brush off. You think, oh, it's just an old house. But really, those are the whispers of a much, much bigger issue that's brewing just behind the scenes.
Oh, you know exactly the one I'm talking about. That persistent, kind of damp, earthy smell you just can't pinpoint. You clean, you open the windows, you air everything out, but it always comes back. Well, that smell is not just an annoyance. It is one of the biggest red flags for hidden moisture and, you guessed it, potential mold growth.
So this is absolutely crucial. You need to keep an eye out for these signs. We're talking about paint that bubbles or peels for no apparent reason, baseboards that start to look a little puffy or swollen, those faint brownish stains that appear on the ceiling, or maybe your wood floors are starting to warp or cup. Listen, these are not just cosmetic flaws, they are distress signals. It's your home telling you that water is getting in where it has no business being.
Okay, to really understand how serious this can get, let's zoom in and look at a real-world case study. We're going to examine a region where all the local conditions line up to create a perfect storm for water intrusion, making this threat feel very, very real.
See, water damage isn't some one-size-fits-all problem. It's incredibly specific. Where you live, your area's soil, its typical weather, even how old the city's sewer lines are, all of this comes together to create a totally unique risk profile for your property.
So in the area we're looking at, you've got this heavy clay soil that basically acts like a giant bowl, just trapping water right up against foundations. Now combine that with intense freeze-thaw cycles that crack pipes, old public sewer systems that just can't handle a big storm, and nearby creeks that are known to flood, you have a true recipe for disaster. Does any of that sound a little too familiar for where you live?
This number right here, this is the tipping point. During a major weather event, like what they call an atmospheric river, this area can get slammed with 3 to 5 inches of rain in a single 24-hour period. I mean, think about that. It doesn't matter how well built your home is, that kind of deluge can overwhelm just about any defense system, leading to some really serious flooding.
All right, so when a perfect storm like that hits, and the worst actually happens, what's next? Well, here's the good news. Even in a worst-case scenario, there's a clear professional path to get everything back to normal. The key is to understand that restoration isn't just about mopping up the floor. It's a systematic, scientific process designed to make your home safe again.
The pros break the whole solution down into 3 clear phases. First, you've got the emergency response. That's all about getting the water out and fast. Second is the really critical drying phase, where they bring in all the specialized equipment. And then finally, once everything is verifiably, scientifically dry, the reconstruction can start. It's like a structured playbook for bringing a home back from the brink.
Now, this is a super important distinction. The real goal isn't just making things look dry. It's about using science to prove that the moisture content deep inside your walls, your floors, your structural wood is back to a safe, stable level. Because skipping this step, that's what leads to all the nasty, long-term problems like mold and rot. And that brings us to the science behind all of this. Because knowing the standards that professionals are supposed to follow really empowers you as a homeowner. It helps you understand what a good job actually looks like, and it makes sure you're protected from shoddy work that can leave dangerous hidden moisture behind.
So who even sets these standards? The main guiding authority is the IICRC. The easiest way to think of them is as the organization that literally writes the rulebook for the entire industry. This nonprofit sets the global standards for restoration work, making sure that technicians are properly trained in the science of drying and follow proven, safe procedures.
One of their most important standards is all about categorizing the water itself. Category 1, that's clean water, pretty simple. But when you move to Category 2, what they call gray water, and especially Category 3, black water, well, the health risks just skyrocket. This is exactly why the source of the water dictates the entire response. You just can't treat a sewage backup the same way you'd treat a burst supply line.
So how do they know when something is truly dry? It all comes down to data. Professionals use these high-tech moisture meters, and they won't even think about starting reconstruction until materials hit very specific targets. So for example, structural wood has to be below 15% moisture, drywall below 12%. And why those numbers? Because that's the scientifically proven point where mold just can't grow. It's a game of numbers, not guesswork.
Okay, so we've covered the problem, the process, and the science behind it. Now, let's put it all together into an actionable playbook. This is the stuff you really need to know to take control if you ever face a water emergency in your own home.
First things first, let's clear up two terms people always get confused: mitigation and restoration. Think of it this way. Mitigation is the emergency phase. It's like stopping the bleeding. It's all about getting the water out and starting the drying to prevent things from getting worse. Restoration, that's what comes after. That's the actual rebuilding part, like putting in new drywall and floors. You mitigate first, then you restore.
So why is that order so incredibly important? This quote says it all. You have a very, very short window. We're talking just 24 to 48 hours before a simple water problem explodes into a complex, expensive mold problem. That's why that emergency mitigation phase has to happen immediately. Fast action isn't a suggestion, it's an absolute necessity. The clock is always ticking.
And this timeline, this really drives home the cost of waiting. Within minutes, water is already wicking up your walls and soaking into everything. Within hours, materials are swelling and warping. And in a day or two, you got mold. And if you wait for days, the actual structural integrity of your home can be at risk. Every single moment you delay makes the problem more destructive and way more expensive to fix. So, when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway? Water damage isn't just about bad luck. It's about risk, and it's about response. You now know the warning signs to look for, and you know the science behind a proper recovery. So the only question left is, are you prepared for what comes next?